Contreras, and I'm Associate Editor of Managed Healthcare Executive.
Hello, and my name is Peter Werwine, and I am Senior Editor of Managed Healthcare Executive. And today we have the pleasure and honor of talking to Otis Brawley, who is a Bloomberg Distinguished Professor of Oncology and Epidemiology at Johns Hopkins, and perhaps better known to the wider world as the former Chief Medical and Scientific Officer of American Cancer Society, where he made some waves. So it's really great that you're talking to us, and we're especially excited because Dr. Brawley is going to be on our editorial advisory board at Managed Healthcare Executive. So we plan to be benefiting from his wisdom and insight on a fairly, but not too bothersome basis. So thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'll start off. First off, it's great to be chatting with you, Otis. I first wanted to start off by asking more of a personal, maybe cliche question, just so our listeners know more about, who is on our editorial advisory board. So before I do, as Peter mentioned, some of your titles, you're also known as a global leader in cancer research and health disparities. So to know more about you personally, can you just tell me what initially sparked your interest in the life sciences field? And was it your initial goal to, I guess, hold the number of all these titles that you do carry?
No, I grew up in Detroit, went to the Catholic grade schools there, and was educated by the Jesuits in high school. And they spent a lot of time teaching us how to think, teaching us a philosophy that we should be men for others. I went to an all-boys school. And I was quite talkative, very interested in policy back then. Many people would have thought, and many people thought at that time, that I would go into law or something like that. I was also very interested in science. I had won science fair prizes and that sort of thing. And ultimately, I ended up weaving science and policy together by going into oncology and then doing a lot of things having to do with health disparities and health outcomes. I was very fortunate that I was working for and with the Surgeon General at the time, David Satcher, when he really brought disparities in health to the forefront.
That's great, thank you. So to talk more about current events, more specifically on race and racism, which is on everyone's mind right now, and partly COVID-19, which made racial disparities in health so apparent and timely. With the recent killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and now the charges that were filed against the police who were involved in Taylor's killings, which many believe fell far short of the charges that should have been. Do you have any concerns of the discussions of race and racism is a passing phase and maybe won't lead to anything more, or do you think more action may, finally come out of these events?
Well, I think civil rights, equity, health equity, just being part of that is a long-term struggle. In terms of what happened to Mr. Floyd and Ms. Taylor, I take a great deal of solace, I guess might be the word, that there's a lot of people who are white, a lot of people who are Hispanic, not Black, who are out there protesting. I sense that the movement has garnered a lot of support from a lot of people that we didn't even see in the civil rights movement in the 60s. I think this is a long-term effort. I don't think it's going to stop. No, I don't think this is just going to peter out over the next couple of months after the election. Everybody will stop being concerned about equity. I do see the movement, by the way, being much more than black. I see the movement expanding to talk about Native American rights. I see the movement expanding to talk more about women's rights. I see the movement expanding to talk more about poverty and socioeconomic disparities, which include some whites who have socioeconomic disparity. But I'm actually I look at what's going on in terms of the reaction to those tragedies, in terms of the population, especially the young population, and it gives me very great hope for the future. But it's long-term effort.
What do you think that the patchwork of the American response to COVID and the 200,000 deaths, I'm sorry, do you think those can be traced to the country's racism?
Yes, I do think that the response to COVID is partially due to racism. It's partially due to some other isms too. One of the great problems that we have in the United States is that we have not focused on healthcare, and we have not focused on taking care of our fellow man. When I've been involved in many of the arguments about getting access to healthcare to poor people, getting access to healthcare universally, there's a number of individuals who call themselves American, express Christian values, but they don't give a damn about their fellow man. They don't care about other people. I used to very commonly talk about how when I was in the military, we had this saying, it was on Navy ship, we had this plaque as we left the ship every day. It said, "We are Americans, we leave no one behind." You know, I went out in the South Pacific, served on that ship, came back to Atlanta, Georgia, to Grady Hospital, where I was the chief of oncology, and I'd walk around and look and say, "We are Americans, we leave a hell of a lot of people behind." You know, the unfortunate thing is there are a number of politicians who just don't care about their fellow man.